morning.
Good
We
morning.
have Amie Gates this morning. She is a candidate for Arkansas State Senate. Amie has moved around a lot throughout her life. She was born in Illinois, outside of Chicago. She lived in Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, and Washington. So she's experienced a lot of diversity. The Midwest, the West Coast cities and rural areas. She graduated from Dardanelle High School in 1988 and moved away after a few years to Lyons College. Once she moved back, she knew she would never leave again. This is home. It felt so natural for her to be back in Arkansas. While running for office, she has also worked at Arkansas Tech University, and she is about to finish her BA in psychology next spring. She's very passionate about theater and the performing arts. She has a production company that organizes stand up comedy, open mics. She just played Truvy Junes in a theatrical production of Steel Magnolias in August. Amie has been in two productions at Tech Theater, and next spring, Tech will be producing a play that she wrote called Altered Memories. Amie is also very passionate about equal rights. Amie feels that if not everyone has equality and equity, none of us do. Diversity is a gift to humanity. I love that part.
Thank you.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining Coffee with Democrats this
Thank
morning.
you for having me on Coffee with Democrats.
Well, let's get started. I would love to know more about you.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've lived in a lot of different places. I was born in outside of Chicago, but I lived in the Seattle area. I've lived in Houston. I've lived a couple of times in Oklahoma. The last time was for almost 10 years. But I think, I mean, I love Seattle. That was a great place to live when you're a Democrat. But I do love being back in Arkansas. Like I said, or like you said in my bio, I graduated from Dardanelle High School, and I live in Russellville now, just across the river from Dardanelle. But I still go over there quite a bit to just kind of enjoy uh, being back home again.
I love that. It's always nice to be able to go back to your hometown, your childhood town, and see what's changed. And it brings back all of those childhood memories.
Oh, very much so. There's a lot of people from school that still live here, so it's almost like yeah, I mean, it's like I've never left, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your hobbies. What do you like to do for fun?
Well, I do love theater. I love to write, but theater is a huge passion of mine. And I'm going back to school to finish my degree in psychology. So, uh, yeah, I've really just been deep in psychology and sociology, which is my minor, uh, for the last year and a half now. So, uh, yeah, but I'm a theater nerd and I'm a psychology nerd.
Tell us a little bit more about your production company. How has
Oh,
that
Plum
been?
Bum. Plum Bum Productions. I joke at the beginning of almost every show about Plum Bum because people think that it might be insinuating something about my physical shape. And I always have to tell them, no, it's actually Latin for pencil, or lead. And I write with pencil all the time. I kind of have a thing for them. So I don't like pen. It feels very permanent. So yeah. So I named my production company after my writing utensil because, like I said, I love to write. Um, I actually started Plum Bum so that I could produce Altered Memories when I was living in Oklahoma, and we did a few productions. We went to a competition with it, and when I moved here, uh, there's enough theater through like Tech Theater and Center Stage. I finally just decided that um, I'd rather focus on the stand up comedy. I had quite a few people when I came here that had never done stand up, before, and now I've got several regulars who are hilarious and have also joined Plum Bum Productions. And almost every time we do an open mic, which is every few months or so, uh, we get a few people signing up, and I love that people will say, "I've always wanted to try it, but I just never had the opportunity to do it." And they get up there and it's just like, oh, you can tell they've fallen in love with that, being up there on that mic and making people laugh, because it's such a good feeling. It's so nice. That's my one of my favorite things about theater and doing stand up or just performing in general is for that moment you're able to help people just kind of escape their lives. Sometimes you can make them think about things, but it usually for about an hour to 2 hours, of their evening, they can just step outside of the stress and the worries and just everything that comes along with life and just experience something else for a little while. Even if it's just a funnier perspective on the same stress that you're trying to escape.
Yeah, it's always nice to just be able to go and relax and kind of tune out the world, and we all need that escape.
Yes, and it feels pretty good on our side to be able to express the things that are in us that it might be, somebody else's words, for example, if you're doing a play, but you get into that character, you kind of become that character, and it's a good escape for us. But it's just a wonderful way to express just the different emotions and things that humans, that part of humanity.
And how was it playing in Still Magnolias? I love that movie.
Uh, well, the play is a little bit different. The movie, obviously, it's written by the same person, Robert Harling, but when he wrote the movie, he added more into it to make it fuller. But in the play, it is all in Truvy's salon, her shop. So uh, she's a very big part. And since I played Truvy, it was a lot of lines. I think there's like 3 pages that I'm not on that stage, and there's only 1 page out of the rest of it that I don't have anything to say. But oh my gosh, it was on my bucket list being a part of Steel Magnolias. But getting to meet all of the people, I didn't know a single person on that production when we started, and now they're like part of my family. Um,
Oh,
they're just they are wonderful people, and being able to put on a show because it sold out. Every performance sold out. There were 3 of them, and, I think we actually had to
awesome.
get some more chairs for the last show, the Sunday show, and just being able to do that for so many people in the River Valley was fantastic, but it was such a good feeling to walk out onto, or even before we got on the stage, like we heard, oh, it's sold out. It's like, oh, this is so exciting. But when you get out there and you feel that energy of just such a big crowd in a town that doesn't usually get like small plays unless they go to tech, um, it was such a good feeling. I can't even begin to describe the energy that we got from the audience, but, I mean, we really formed some amazing friendships in that cast, so
That's so awesome. And you said next spring, you will be having your production. Well, the
yes,
script that you wrote.
altered memories. Yes, I'm thrilled. I get to direct it. So it's gonna be fun. I'll be working full time, I'll be taking a couple of classes, getting ready for graduation. Did I already say running for office? And directing a play, so it's spring's gonna be crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about it. Like I said, I've done a couple of productions of it before, and I've even competed in it. But when I was in it, um, when I was doing it before, I was in it. I play there's only 2 characters, and I played one of them, and it's a 45-minute script. So um, and there's quite a bit going on, and it's really hard to direct yourself because you can't sit in the audience and look and just go, "Oh, we need to change that," or even directing somebody else because I can't see what's going on. So I had to get an assistant director, which was nice, but I'm very excited to give 2 actresses a shot at doing this play, and I can just sit back and I can watch it and, just go from there and fix the things that need to be fixed, and yeah, I'm so happy to not be on that stage this time.
Yeah, that would be hard. I couldn't imagine trying to juggle both, but that's awesome. I would love to come out to Russellville and check it out. You'll have
Well,
to let me know
anybody that
when it airs.
wants to, I will be posting the dates on it, as soon as I find out. But yeah, I will let you know when it is. It'll I'm gonna guess that it's probably gonna be end of March, beginning of April. That's usually when we do tech productions in the spring.
Okay. And so you did mention you are running for office, Arkansas
Yes.
State Senate. So what
Yes.
inspired you to run for office?
Um, everything. Everything that is going on. Oh my gosh. I mean, I've always been I used to call myself a political junkie because I can really get tunnel vision when it comes to politics sometimes. Um, but so much has changed in just the last 2 years, especially in Arkansas. And a lot of it started, and not just in Arkansas, but all over the country. And um, when I shortly after I moved to Arkansas, all of this started with Roe v. Wade was overturned. I'd already been kind of thinking about it because my ultimate goal is to someday work on mental health care. I feel like there's too much of a disparity and that mental health care should be treated the same as any other health care.
Absolutely.
Uh, and that is something that I think needs to be done on a national level. But when Roe v. Wade was overturned, um, and then let's see, affirmative action. There's the bathroom bill. They started banning books, not allowing gender affirming care. Uh, there, like the list goes on, and then learns, learns came around, and um, I think that was the ultimate. That was just the um, straw that broke the camel's back. Learns bill is it's going to destroy our public school system, which would eventually destroy our communities, especially in rural Arkansas. And so that was my big motivator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. With the Learns Act. Let's talk about that. You were involved with, or you still are, involved with the Capes Coalition. How did you get involved with that, and
Oh,
what
I'm actually
inspired you?
I am not involved in the Capes Coalition. I mean, I did help the Democrats, the Polk County Democrats, during when they were doing the petition drive, which I think was started through Capes.
Yeah,
And when I say I'm not involved with it, I'm not directly involved. It was basically because at the time I was when they started the petition, I think this was right around when Steel Magnolias had started, and or shortly before that. And so I'd started to help with like the petitions, but I wasn't really able to do too much, working, and then practices would go to 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. Um, so I did basically, like, if you need me, you tell me. If you need somebody to be somewhere to help with something, um, let me know. And so I helped with like there was a drive through, like where you can sign the petition, I helped with that. Uh, so like I said, I wasn't able to do as much back then. And maybe that was actually might be the guilt that kind of propelled me a little bit more to running for office. Uh,
Well,
That and I
what
just oh, sorry, go ahead.
what you did, that was absolutely needed. Um, you were needed. Your work was needed.
Well, and I definitely, I feel that, now from the party, the once I made the decision to run for office, or I mean, really, even when I was debating it, I got a lot of support from Polk County Democrats. I've had so many people that are like, no, that needs to be changed, and we need Democrats in office. It won't change otherwise. And even just a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Polk County Fair here in Russellville, for almost every night. There was one night I had to miss, but I was there almost every night, and just I was collecting signatures on my petition to get on the ballot. But I talked to a lot of people, and I mean, there were quite a few people that when they asked, like, well, why are you running? I was like, well, my main priority right now is learns. It needs to be revised. And they were like, enough said. Here, give me the petition. I'll sign. That needs to be changed. There's so many people that are very concerned about what the impact will be. And then on the flip side of that, we have so many people that don't know what's in learns. I've had a couple of like Zoom meetings with some educators to talk about what could be changed, what needs to be removed, what needs to be added. And there are a few teachers that had mentioned that a lot of parents don't know really anything about what's in learns, except that the starting salary will now be 50,000, and then you can go up to 52. Um, that's what they know.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I knew at the very beginning of it, and I was like, "Well, that's not so bad," but then we really start digging into it, you see all of the problems that there are, and even the $50,000 starting salary, which I don't have an issue with that. I don't think that teachers get paid enough to start anyway,
Right.
but even that in itself with the limitation of how much they'll be able to make regardless of their experience, their skills, their continuing education, it that's where I think the problem with that comes in. So, I'm hoping that by running for office and by running for office, I'm hoping to help educate people on what is actually in the legislation, and hopefully, in office, be able to start working on changing it, because I think a lot of people want it changed. It was put out there so quick. And I mean, I'd be willing to put some money down that every legislator that voted on it hadn't actually read the 145 pages. Most people haven't read the 145 pages of that legislation.
It was a lot. It was a lot. Like the way it came out and how big it was and how much it is a complete overhaul of our public education system. And
Yeah.
as a parent, I'm concerned.
Oh, well, I mean, if we don't do something to fix it, then I definitely would be concerned, because um, I mean, it's just I have almost like a laundry list of just reasons why it's going to be harmful for. It's really harmful for everybody. It's not even just parents and students. It's really bad for our communities and for our state.
It is. It is. So let's talk a little bit more about the Learns Act.
Yeah,
For anyone that's listening that's not aware, let's give them some information and tell them about the Learns
absolutely.
Act.
Absolutely. One of the first things that I found out about the Learns Act is that prior to this, we had teacher fair dismissal. Uh, it's the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act. the Learns bill uh, cuts that out of there. So, uh, and just to kind of give you a little bit of context on why this is a bad thing, if you know any teachers, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. The Teacher Fair Dismissal Act, without it, teachers are scared. So when I did those Zoom meetings with the educators, the very first one that I did, the first person that logged in was somebody that didn't know me. Um, and I had forgotten to put why I was doing it. So she was a little concerned on why there was somebody that was wanting to know about revising Learns. And so uh, the she was scared. She was scared there's going to be like an administrator or somebody that she could lose her job because she was part of this conversation. So, like, she didn't even have her full name up there. She didn't have her picture up there. She was the first one in, and it was a few minutes before somebody else logged in. So, I mean, we talked for a little bit, but you could tell she was a little bit hesitant. But the more we talked, the more I understood why, because the Teacher Fair Dismissal Act takes away all protections for teachers, and it's it's basically um, they could say that a teacher, oh, it's bad performance on the teacher's part if they can come up with any reason they want to be honest with you. um I mean, they could say that um you know this particular teacher is being nicer to other students than my child. A parent could call it and make that complaint. They could easily get rid of a teacher for that. You could like something on somebody, and this has happened, like something on a Facebook post and then get reprimanded from your school district for liking a post. Um, and the more we talked about it, we started to think about, some of the possibilities. If you don't go to the right church, if you don't go to church at all, if I mean, ultimately they could use this to uh, bring back a lot of discrimination towards educators who are in a marginalized population based off of the color of their skin, based off of whether or not they're LGBTQIA or they're straight. Um, it could be because you ask, hey, some of the teachers are going to go out to have dinner, and you decide, you're like, I can, or well, you're not part of that group. I mean, almost anything could be used as a reason to get rid of somebody. And I've known teachers who have had to go through that struggle of, one or two teachers don't like the fact that you're a Democrat. This has literally happened. Um, she's a Democrat. We're going to have to get rid of her. And it's a very traumatizing experience for somebody who just wants to teach. Just that's their career, but that's their calling. They
Right.
don't get paid much. They have to go through a lot. They work very hard. They're responsible for so much on a daily basis. And to I mean, it has to be a calling to want to be, I think, a teacher, especially in a public school. But that's just an awful lot for teachers to go through. I mean, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking, that Arkansas is a right to work state. I mean, none of us really have that job protection, but um, they're very important people in our lives. None of us would be where we are at all without teachers. So I feel like they are deserving of some protection for their careers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially in this political climate right now,
Hmm.
education has become political and polarized. And
But yeah, it absolutely is.
any reason to get rid of a teacher, you have to question what all is going on here.
Right.
There's so much that just seem to be so outlandish, but then when you look at the grand scheme, or the big picture. It's I question what their intentions, like their end game is with all of this. And I can only come up with just completely obliterating the public school system.
I think they want to privatize it. Um, and really, I I work at a university. I take classes at a university. I talk to a lot of students, and quite a few have told me. I say quite a few, maybe half a dozen, have told me that I want to be a teacher, but I don't know that I want to be a teacher right now. We're gonna start losing educators. Arkansas gets ranked at the bottom of the list on education a lot, often. And I don't know how we can make that better if we're not providing e- equality and equity to the to students.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. We owe it to the children, um, to give them all, all of those tools. They should all have the same tools available, every tool that they need. If a child needs certain resources, give that child those resources. I think
Yeah,
that we can absolutely find a way to do that.
I don't believe that. I don't believe, and you mentioned earlier about my feelings on equality. I just don't believe that we can rank people, that one's better than another, that somebody
Absolutely.
deserves more than another, that, you know, yeah, I mean, we say it, all the time that um, that our country is about freedom and equality and, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But it's not that way for a huge number of Americans. So, yeah, it's definitely something I feel very strongly about that, and I have since I was a kid. I've always been a little obsessed with the idea of civil rights and civil liberties. But uh, that's, I think, a huge part of almost every single part of the legislation that I would like to introduce, in the Senate.
So
The Learns Act would be a big part of it.
what would you like to change if you could say, I think all of us can agree, no matter what political background we identify with, that education in Arkansas, I mean, you just look at the numbers, it sucks. It sucks. We need a change. And so I would love to hear what you would like to see.
Um, oh my gosh, where do I start? I I feel like, and I'm glad this is coffee with Democrats because I'm going to get a little bit into onto my blue soapbox here for a moment, but I feel like on the right, and I'm sure everybody that is listening to this will kind of understand what I'm talking about. On the right, they've been making the argument for so long that they are pro-life. I mean, this has absolutely bothered me, and I will say that I am pro-choice 100%. But it bothers me that we are dealing with a party that considers themselves to be pro-life. I really feel like they should just call themselves anti-abortion, um, because they're not pro-life. They are pro-birth. I mean, they're. It's not even, for a while. I was like, oh well, they only care until the child is born and then they stop caring. But honestly, I mean, we know that mothers don't get free prenatal care. There's so many things before the child is even born that make that they already start on an uneven playing field. I would like to see a little bit more of them backing that up. If you're going to be pro life, then you need to be pro equality. You need to be pro quality of life. And when it comes to equality, it's not just education. It also extends into healthcare. It food disparity. There's you. Oh no, I don't think that was you I was talking to about that the other day. Uh, Food deserts. There's some legislation that somebody has been working on, um, or I should say, a referendum regarding, the food deserts in Arkansas, and they have a wonderful idea on how we can change these things. It involves like a revolving fund and very low interest loans to start putting grocery stores into areas that um, are are in need, that are basically don't have the same options that some of us do in maybe less rural areas or in urban areas. There's a lot of places, a lot of people that don't have access to a healthy diet, that don't have access to staple foods because they don't, like, for example, I had the ability to get, fortunately, I would have to, when I lived in Oklahoma, I had to drive into town to go grocery shopping. I'm sure there's quite a few people in Arkansas that can relate to that. Um, the only other option I had was a convenience store, gas station that was just a couple of minutes away from my house. But they don't have healthy options. They don't have staple, the staple food items, and this would help to fix that. I know very little about it, but I know just enough to know that this is kind of the direction that we need to be going in. We need to be providing healthier food options. We need to be offering or giving the opportunity to be educated on what nutrition is, and how to cook our meals so that we're eating a more balanced diet and doing the things that are good for us and not necessarily using processed foods. And at the same time, this would also provide for like fresh fruits and vegetables from local markets or gardeners. And uh, so it's helping out, I think, in more ways than one, because it becomes more of a community effort. And it's really what I would like to see in Arkansas. Well, I'd like to see it everywhere, but I like to see it in Arkansas, that we're starting to look at each other as um, our fellow humans, and not make it so much of a competition of, well, my way is the right way and I'm going to dig my heels in. Uh, no, the way we have it right now, a lot of it isn't working, and it's not working for a lot of Arkansans. And the food disparity, healthcare disparity, there's a lot that needs to, and the educational disparity, there's a lot that needs to be changed for us. But I don't think that will happen if we don't have a little bit more blue in our government, because the Republicans have had several years to show us what they can do, and they're turning us in the other direction. Um, Bill Clinton did wonders for our state when he was the governor. Um, and it feels like some of the things that he had done, now we're just moving backwards. And we still had a lot of growth. We still had so much to do before it started turning in the other direction. We weren't really even close to where we need to be. So, um, yeah, that's how I envision, like, the ideal Arkansas is that we just have more equality and more equity, and that we treat each other, especially, the government, who is responsible for listening to people and serving the people. We need to start treating each other as individual human beings that deserve, the same opportunities, and are able to thrive based off of what resources they have, the equity that they have.
In 2020, Congress launched a school lunch program ensuring that all children received breakfast and lunch at school, regardless of household income. What are your thoughts about this program?
I absolutely support something like that. I think that's something that it should be continued. It especially, in the rural areas, uh, there's less jobs in rural areas. The economy tends to work a little bit differently, and I feel like, even when I was a kid and I was receiving, the free lunches, there's still a stigma to it. I remember in high school, I was able to get free breakfast for a while, and I didn't do it every day. And I know you're supposed to, start your day out with a good meal, and I wouldn't do it because of the stigma that came behind it. So I feel like, one, there are going to be a lot of kids who do need it, and that absolutely, without question, needs to be an option for us. We need to be taking care of those children, but there's also going to be some in there. The reason why I think it should be for regardless of income is there's still going to be some out there that are like, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't want people to know that I'm poor. I don't want people to know um, that I'm that poor that I can, that I get free lunches and I get free meals. So making it available to everybody, regardless of income, to me, it takes away that stigma that a lot of children will feel because they're on free lunches. I never personally experienced this, but I know that sometimes children will have to that they're subjected to, some bullying based off of the fact that, oh, well, you get free lunch. Yeah, it just make it available to all children. It's it's what we need to do if we consider ourselves pro-life.
I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. We need to take care of our children for sure.
Yeah.
We talked earlier, you had mentioned a little bit about abortion access and, talking about pro life and being pro life through feeding our children. We saw in 2022, after Dobbs' decision came out, Arkansas had the trigger ban, and we had the abortion ban in
Mhm.
Arkansas. What are your views on regarding abortion access?
Well, it's not even just a matter of choice. I think now, I am pro-choice, and I do think that it should be accessible to anybody um, who needs it or wants it. But I'm also not every American, and it's also not something that's necessarily that much under our control. I mean, it is. I mean, we could, but we know what's realistically our governor and our legislature right now is not really going to go in the direction of access to everybody who needs and wants it. But there are a lot of people who need it, a lot of women, and unfortunately young girls. Um, I feel like at the very least, right now, the way it stands, if you are a victim of rape or incest, you have to kind of petition the state to make an exception for you to get that abortion. It's just unfathomable that you need to go through that process. You've already been victimized as a rape victim or a victim of incest, and now you're having to, just put your personal experiences out there to people that you don't even know. I mean, we protect our HIPAA protects our healthcare information. This is healthcare information. This does not need to be something that goes through a committee or a panel or, a legislator to decide whether or not your 14-year-old daughter who you may have been raped has to have that child or not. Um, there's also a lot of um, there are women that will die because they, may not have something's going on with the pregnancy that's endangering their life or their physical health. Um, there have been women that I've heard speak out about having to go through a pregnancy where it wasn't a viable pregnancy. The child was not going to survive the birth, and they had to carry the child to term. When you're having a baby, when my friends, my family, when there's a baby on the way, you get to do all of these wonderful things. You're very excited that the baby's coming. You think about names, you throw a shower. Some people, if they're fortunate enough, can like decorate a nursery. um, you kind of stress over the fact that it's going to be a lot of money, but it's a very, very exciting thing to have to physically go through that process and know that at the end result is that you're going to have a child that you won't get to do anything with. You'll never get to see that child live a life. I don't know how somebody else can force parents to go through that. And it's not just the mom, it's the dad, it's friends, it's family. There might be other children. It also can cause physical damage to a woman to have to go through some of these pregnancies and then not know whether or not they'll be able to have another baby. There was one woman, I think she's in Texas, that she had to carry a baby to term, a fetus to term, and she knew, um, I can't remember exactly where she was at, but I want to say she might have been around like maybe 10, 15 weeks, but she she had to carry this baby to term, or she was that's what I think she did eventually go to another state, but this was her first baby. She was so excited. Her and her husband so excited about this, and they had been trying for a while, and she doesn't know if she's going to be able to have babies again or get pregnant again. So they say that they're pro-life, but they seem to be, the Republicans, they seem to be against, they're so steadfast in their beliefs on this and so stubborn, that they can't look at the big picture and realize that they're actually going to be preventing a lot of births. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
there's
don't
a
think
lot
that's
of,
something that they've really
I'm
thought through.
sorry.
I don't think they've really actually thought through that whole part. None of them, I'm not going to say none, but I'll say
Right.
the majority of them aren't OBGYNs. They don't have that advanced knowledge of reproductive systems and reproductive health. Um, so it's not something that was on their mind when they passed these laws, and it doesn't look like it was taken into consideration at all.
No, and actually the other day, somebody gave me some information on a poll in Arkansas that most Arkansans don't um, have certain points where it's like, no, I think that it's okay. Like if the mother's life is in danger, if her physical health is in danger, if the pregnancy is no longer viable, um, there when it actually I have some of the numbers here as far as like Republicans, independents and Democrats go. When the pregnancy is no longer viable, 65% of Republicans would support an abortion. Independents 80% and Democrats 84. Obviously is a little bit higher, but I mean even 65% of Republicans agree that if a pregnancy is not viable, then the mother or the parents should be allowed to make that decision. Um, and then what I found really interesting is that Protestants and Catholics, because Catholics have always been against abortion, um, both 74%, both Protestants and Catholics believe that if a pregnancy is not viable, that abortion is an alternative. And I feel like there's room to move on that. Like there's room to fix some stuff. If we listen to the majority of Arkansans, if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as politicians and as a government, then you can't deny that there are some situations where I don't know that we'll get Arkansas back on track after the Dobbs decision, for quite a while. But at the very least, we need to be looking at exceptions to that rule. It doesn't need to be so cut and dry. Um, again, if it's rape or incest, if the pregnancy is not viable, if it could hurt or kill the mother, then these are things that we need to have a little bit more consideration on. Their privacy, they shouldn't have to go through the state to apply to have one. Um, we just need to give them that consideration that it's their body and they know their body far better than any politician is going to. Their doctors know their body far more than a politician will know.
Absolutely. And it reminds me so much, back when President Obama was in office, and was a lot of talk from the Republicans about these death panels. And now here we are in 2023, and a person has to go in front of people who they do not have a medical degree, they don't have a medical background, and
Yeah.
ask them, can I have this medical procedure? This is my case. Like, when did this become something that we are litigating in a courtroom? It 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 blows my mind. Um, it feels like we're in, I don't know, some other alternate universe.
It feels almost as if we're in like we're moving a little bit towards a dictatorship. It feels a little Big Brothery to
It
me.
does.
It
Yeah.
does. It's a little Orwellian.
Yes.
They need to be in our business so much. I mean, um, if I were to say, I'm gonna go get a hysterectomy, I don't need to have the government's permission for that.
Yes.
Uh, you don't need to have permission to have from the government to do almost any surgical procedure. Abortion is it.
Yeah.
Um, your doctors make decisions. Maybe your insurance company might say, we're not going to cover it, but you don't have to go to the government and ask them if you can have like gastric bypass surgery. So yeah,
Different times for sure.
hopefully that's changing soon though. It's
Yes.
gonna it's gonna change. I know that there are a lot of Arkansans. Like I said, I talked to a lot, and honestly, even with the when going back to the Lawrence bill for just a second, there are a lot of people that I've spoken to who are Republican, but not when it comes to education. And then, like I said, 65% of the Republicans that were polled agreed with this on abortion. So there's there's definitely a possibility that we can go in and make some bipartisan changes. Um, but I think it takes a lot of conversations, and we need to find the right politicians that are willing to sit down and have those conversations. And then we can maybe get back to trying to work towards a normal uh, world again.
Right.
Um, maybe even better than normal at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. It all starts with those conversations. And I think right now, um, what we see in our current legislature is, very extreme, very
Yes,
extreme.
very extreme. Yeah, the banning of books, removing AP classes for African American studies. You can't tell me that some of the things that we're doing are not heading towards uh, I mean, I don't know. It scares me to think of which direction we're heading in, but when you take away the rights of so many people, everybody that's LGBTQ. When you take away the ability to learn about our history when it comes to like African American studies, for example, it, it it feels like, and I hate saying it, but it feels like we're heading in a direction um, that kind of resembles a little bit of a fascist society because, or a fascist government, because you're no longer ruling for the people or ruling for the people, speaking for the people, but you're no longer ruling or passing legislation that it isn't just that we're not heading towards equality, we're heading in the opposite direction. People are losing control over their lives. They're losing choice. They're losing the ability to learn about the things that we've done in history that were wrong and what we did to change that. Obviously, you know, slavery, for example, I mean, that was, the worst part of our history as Americans. And um, to deny it means that you also are denying that we grew, that we've made progress.
Gun violence in schools is a concern for many parents and children in Arkansas. How can we tackle this issue?
Surprisingly, I feel like the issue of gun violence is something that we actually stand a chance on coming together for a bipartisan effort. I had a few conversations back during the fair at the Polk County Fair. Um, Oddly enough, the Democrats' table was located right next to the Friends of the NRA. Yes, it was very interesting. But, I will talk to anybody. So, because when I got there, they're like, "Oh, look who we've got," and I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to talk to them." And like, "You're going to talk to them?" Absolutely, I'm going to talk to them. Uh, so, but like I said, over the course of like several days, we talked quite a bit, and I feel like we will never get where I should say never. I hate saying never. Hate absolutes. It's going to be a very, very tough fight to try to get us to the point where we want to be as Democrats when it comes to gun control. But I do think that there are some things that we could do that both sides could agree on. Because one of the women that was working their table, um, she said, "Well, the main reason that I became a supporter of the NRA, the main or well, yeah, the NRA, and they do make a lot of effort around Democrats to separate themselves from the NRA and friends of the NRA." But she said the reason that she joined up and started supporting and working these fairs and whatnot is because she feels like there's not enough gun education, and that's what their goal is to help educate people on gun safety and hunter safety or hunting safety and so on. And I realized that they don't do any of that in school anymore. And when I was a kid, I remember in I think it was fifth grade or sixth grade, in gym class, we had a couple of days where we learned gun safety because we had classmates. When deer season started, they would take off for the day and they would go deer hunting. I mean, they start around that age, typically, and so the school would provide this education to us. Now, I had no desire to go hunting or shoot a gun at that age, but looking back on it, I thought, well, wait, they don't do that anymore, and they're like, no. I was like, well, that's where I learned, not to point at, certain things. And this is when I learned like what a gun can do. I learned the damage that a gun can do. They're not learning that anymore, and it it feels like that's something we could easily bring back. I don't think there would be that many Arkansans that would say, "You know what? I don't want my child to know, what a gun can do. I think my child should know that, if it's not locked up, you know, this is the possibility. You don't play with guns when you're, a child." They play so many video games, and, now they got, access to things online. There's, you know, a lot more, social media. I don't wanna say there's more violence in movies because I don't really know that for a fact. I don't know the data on that, but, they're exposed to a lot more options when it comes to how they're receiving, their entertainment. So and there's a lot more violence that they can be exposed to. But if they're aware of what it is, what are the possibilities? I think that would be at least a workable step for us to try to start working on some bipartisan legislation. Um, yeah. Now, as far as gun violence in school, I think that would help. But the problem, I think, still lies with adults who, um, and I think this is a much, much broader problem when you get into like not just gun violence in schools, but just gun violence in general and mass shootings, because obviously this has become a serious problem for a lot of people throughout the country. And I think that just takes me back to the problem that we have with mental health care. And that's one of the reasons why I, initially started to look into running for office, because I feel like we still have too much of a stigma on mental health. Um, we could possibly, do some statewide campaigns as far, trying to help on the stigma. But when it comes down to it, we need to be educating people better. We need to be treating mental health better. Um, and until we do that, we're probably not going to be able to make as big of a dent in, you know, preventing violence in our country or in our state.
We have definitely, we definitely need to prioritize mental health care and healthcare in general, um, not just here in Arkansas, but throughout the country. It's
Yeah.
definitely been something that we haven't really taken care of and really put a lot of our priority. It hasn't been a priority for us, and
It,
it's
it
obvious.
hasn't. But I'll tell you, a few weeks ago, I heard that President Biden is working on, oh, he's working on I think, a bill or a program that will help to start moving mental health care more in the direction of healthcare, to start treating it the same. I wanted to cry when I heard about this. So there are some steps being taken by our president, but in the meantime, uh, working on that stigma and um, providing education is probably going to help get us in the right direction. Feel like, again, it's bipartisan, because if I can have this conversation with the friends of the NRA, and I mean, we laughed, we talked seriously, we were honest with each other. Um, Honestly, if they were not outside of my district because they were in the wrong county, they probably would have signed my petition. It was a good conversation, because when it comes down to it, we're still Arkansans. We're still humans. We have a lot of the same goals in life. It's just our path to get there that might be a little bit different. And I feel like a lot of times Democrats kind of have to take the higher road a little bit. And so we have to take baby steps sometimes in trying to get the things that we want. Um, like I said, I mean, eh, bringing us back to pre-Dobbs decision, um, taking us back to having affirmative action, and getting rid of guns. Um, especially in semi-automatics, I found out recently, there are a lot of hunting rifles that are classified as semi-automatics, and it's probably just a very, very, very steep hill to climb. We may never get up there in our lifetimes, um, but we can do a lot, and I think there are other humans out there, in our state that regardless of who they decide on when they're at the polls, they want the same things. We just have to figure out a way that we can get there together, and I think it's more likely that we can, as Democrats, can step back and say, okay, this is what I'm working with. They're going to be stubborn about it, but I can start coming from this direction and just have a conversation with them. We can get some stuff done.
A lot of the bills this last session very wrongly targeted marginalized communities under the guise of protecting children. What can
Ugh,
we do here in Arkansas to protect children that's actually backed by facts and data?
I'm so glad you asked that. One of the things that I would like to work on is child protection legislation. Um, it is very difficult, I think, for somebody to come back at you and say, "Oh no, I'm not even going to consider something that has child protection in it." I feel like um, if we if we come, and sometimes it really is just verbiage, but if we can make a comprehensive package that um, would encompass a lot of the things that we need for child protection, like you know the the changes with the Learns Act, but education, um, allowing minors to have access to abortions if they are victims of rape and incest, um, and providing more education for them on guns and gun safety, but also being able to promote trauma informed care in schools. We have a lot of children that live with um, abuse, whether it's perpetrated on them or against somebody else in the household. Uh, these are these are things, and it doesn't have to be physical abuse, emotional abuse. These are things that they have to live with, and providing trauma informed care, because it's a little bit different when you're dealing with someone who's a victim of trauma. Trying not to trigger, they don't respond exactly. And I know that I'm a victim of trauma, so I kind of get that. But um, they may not respond the same way depending on where they're at, right at that moment. And people that have to work with children, I mean, I'm not just talking about educators, but also I feel like people that are working in like Sunday school, daycares, or nurseries, in churches, first responders. Um, there's, our court system, and it's not just for children, but for adults as well. We need to be able to um, meet children more at a level that they're at, instead of assuming that we know what's best just because we're adults. Um, and we may not even have specialized, training in how to, work with this part of the community. And then also, going back to the food deserts, there's significant food disparity. I like I said, I would definitely support a program for free breakfast and lunches, but we we need to be doing more like during the summer, or like you said, when there was COVID, when we were in a lockdown and they were isolated. There's going to be times where during fall break, Christmas break, there are times where they're not in school. They're in school a lot, but there's so many situations where they may not be. And I mean, homeschooled children, they're not going to go and be able to access those free meals. So um, we need to be putting more resources into providing healthy and consistent nutrition for children. And these are the ways that we can protect them. Um, there's probably a lot more that we can include with that, but I think those are the basics on it. I want to try to put through legislation that will actually protect kids and maybe give them a little bit more equal footing in life as they develop.
That's
And
so
I don't know how somebody, Republican or Democrat or independent, can say no to protecting kids.
How important is it for Democrats to organize in rural Arkansas?
Oh my gosh. We can't do it without it. Um, as I said earlier, the only way we're really going to be able to get good positive change, the only way we're going to get back on track and progress forward is if we have progressives in office. We don't need conservatives. Conservatives is it's like the antithesis of progression. So, but especially in rural areas, these are the areas that are most impacted by the decisions that our government makes. A lot of decisions are made with, you know, what some people see as, how life works for other people. Well, that's not how it works for rural people. And when you consider that, like, Russellville is a fairly big town. Dardanelle is definitely rural, but there's more rural than Dardanelle. And Dardanelle has, fast food chains. They've got, grocery store. They've got a Walmart. You can do almost anything you need. They have, you can go to the doctor. You have access to the things that you need in this town, but, there are much smaller towns. The things that we need, we're not going to get until we have progressives in office. And these are the areas that need it the most.
Absolutely. We
And
do.
without organizing, um, I mean, we're just not going to win. We're not going to make any changes right now. Everybody's pretty not maybe not happy with the status quo, but they're comfortable with the status quo. People resist change. And so without organizing and using our voices and using facts and data and saying, well, this is what we need to do. These are the experts that are saying this is what we should do. We just make can't make a difference. We won't be able to get in there and change anything. I think it's especially important, and I just want to make a side note on this. You and I haven't talked about this yet, but another very, very important part of us getting into office and starting to make change is Gen Z. The 18 to 24-year-olds are vital right now. Arkansas, or I shouldn't say right now, in 2022, approximately 50% of the registered voters ages 18 to 24 didn't vote. And it's vital that we get them to. They're such a passionate generation. They are so expressive. Um, there's so much power that's in Gen Z, and but they're young. And you know how it is when you're young, you don't feel like your voice makes a difference, your vote doesn't make a difference. We need to show them that it does. I think they're starting to get that perspective a little bit, but um e- especially, Gen Z is in rural areas. If we have to figure out a way that we can show them that, there is hope and we can change things, but we can't do it without them. And it's just a huge, huge part of our population, and they deserve to have their voices heard. They're going to be the ones that are inheriting what we got, and
Exactly.
they don't like where it's going.
Right. What does the perfect Arkansas look like to you?
Uh, well, blue for one thing.
Right.
Um, uh, The perfect Arkansas for me is, well, I feel like I'm just going, just really pounding it in, but it's that equity. Um, and it's the loss of the connection between us. The perfect Arkansas for me, oh my gosh, we would finally make it to the right end of the right list. Like, we would be much higher if we could just get up to the middle on education. If we weren't ranked, like, so high up there on domestic violence. Um, if Yeah, those are poverty. Yeah, it's another list that we don't do very well on. I mean, there's several, and one of these days, I would just love to see us make it to just a different part of those lists. I don't wanna be at the bottom of certain ones. I don't wanna be at the top of the other ones, just somewhere in the middle. I think that would just be ideal for Arkansas. We have so much potential. I mean, there's so many resources in this state. Um, yeah, there's just no reason why we shouldn't be doing better. I feel like we could have a, um a greener, more ecologically friendly state because we do have all of these resources here. It We have the potential. Bill Clinton started the um, the program years ago. That if you worked at a high school or high school in a public school in an area that was underdeveloped or underrepresented, that you could get your student loans paid back. Like, these are there was so much potential there. We were moving in a really good direction. I would love to see us be able to put people through school, like, give them that access and then find jobs for them when they get out. Or if they don't want to go to school, they just want to, we need more jobs. That's the ideal Arkansas for me, and that children are able to grow up and not have that fear that, or not well, they don't have that fear when they're in school that their lives might be in danger, and then when they get out of school and they're moving on, that there's hope for them to find a good job and raise a family or not raise a family, whatever they decide to do. We have choices on how we're gonna live our lives, and we get to live them in a way that makes us happy and fulfilled, regardless of what that's going to be.
I love that. I love that so much.
I don't know that I express that as well as I want to. I think my brain's getting ready to shut down.
I totally got that though. Yeah, I love that. So, how can Arkansans help with your campaign? How can we get
Well,
involved?
yeah, right now I am definitely looking for volunteers. One of the best ways, at least in my district, is I'd like to get the word out there. My name needs to be out there. Be starting our fundraising. I have fundraising consultants through Good Change, the Good Change organization. Wonderful people, and we're gonna really be hitting that fundraising hard. But the wonderful thing about my fundraising is that through Good Change, I'm actually going to be able to kind of contract with volunteers so that they can get a percentage of the money that they raise. So I feel like that's a great way for if somebody's wanting to pick up some extra money, but it would also help me out to get, uh, excuse me, to get some donations in on my campaign. It's not going to be a cheap one. Um, yeah, my opponent's going to have a lot of backing on that. So that's a big one. I need a social media manager. So if there's someone out there that has a lot of experience with handling social media accounts, I can't do it all with everything else that I'm doing, especially, but I can't do all of those platforms and really devote the attention to it that it needs. Um, yeah, I think that, and get to the polls and vote. If you're not registered, register, and then they need to get out and vote. Those are the biggest things. We need, and you need to encourage others to. If you know people that aren't registered to vote, and not even just my campaign, but outside of my district, if you know people that are registered to vote, help them, find out why they're not going to the polls. Maybe just encourage them, maybe give them a ride. Um, if they're not registered, you can explain to them that, registering is not going to hurt you. It doesn't mean it's not going to commit you to anything. You're just registered to vote so that you have that option to take advantage of some, a right that a lot of people died for um, to give us. But we just need to be more vocal. We need to be using our voices. And the more that my name and other Democratic candidates' names are out there and they know they have a choice, then that's the best thing I think we can do for any Democratic campaign right now.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for the chat this morning. I really appreciate it. And we will be sharing your links so that everybody can get involved.
Yes, and absolutely you can go to my Facebook page and follow me there, and it will give you information on my website. It will give you I believe my email is on there. There's all kinds of ways to contact me, but it'll also keep you abreast of all of the events and everything that's going on. But it's Amie for Arkansas State. Amie Gates, sorry, Amie Gates, AMIE Gates for Arkansas AR State Senate. But yeah, follow me, and from there, you'll see a lot of opportunities on how you can get stuff out there so that we're raising awareness on the Democratic candidates that are going to be on that ticket.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to just go out and um, share my message, or what I want to do with other Arkansans. And just thank you so much for what you're doing to help give us that platform to get this stuff out there and to try to help make changes here in Arkansas and everywhere else.
We're definitely going to make them. I know we can.
I know we can.